Hey y'all, hope you're doing good. So I want to share some true stories with you all, and I have been wanting to do this for a very long time, but I have quite the collection in my memory, and I've had to take the time to sort through and kind of figure out where to begin. So I had to take a long drive today, and so I had plenty of time to think, and I've come up with 3 different times in my life where I had some very unusual things happen, and I would love to hear if you have had similar experiences, if you have any kind of insight or thoughts about these things. Yeah, so let's go ahead and jump in. I've got something good to drink, hopefully you do too, and of course I always hydrate with my coffee, so I've got my water as well. So, yeah, 3 types of things that I've dealt with in my life. And I consider each one sort of like a little mini story, even though they each have like different chapters. Well, some do, some don't. Or pieces to the story, different experiences that are all contained within that same topic. So the first one, I guess I would call the laser lights. Now, growing up, I'm an only child. So when I was a kid, my parents and I had a couple of different times. I could remember 2, but if I'm not mistaken, it happened more than that. But for some reason, I can't remember the specifics of when or what it was like. But I can remember 2 different times for sure. When it was night, and we had these red dots that, like a laser light dot, that would just show up on our wall, and it would move. And we knew that it was coming from outside. And so it's something like that, when you don't know where it's coming from or who it is or what their intentions are, if it's just, kids playing around, playing a joke, a prank, or something more serious, it could be unsettling. And I've thought a lot about this, and I'm going to give you guys the details, but I think that, some of us deal with crazy things like that by being very brave. And so I wasn't a really little kid when this happened. In fact, I was a teenager, and it was strange, but I think that I pushed down any kind of fear that I may have had, and I was mostly curious. And so the first time it happened, that I can remember anyway, it was raining, and we had an above ground pool in the backyard with a deck, kind of a half moon shaped, half circular, because our pool was circular. So it was like half of the pool, side of the pool had the deck with stairs, and the stairs on the side closest to the house faced the house. And along the bottom of the deck, we had lattice. And like I said, it was pouring down rain. It was late at night. My dad was asleep. My mom and I were up. And my mom starts calling for me. She's like, come here. There's a red laser light coming in the window, the kitchen window. And I didn't believe her, honestly. My first thought was, it's pouring down rain. There's no way somebody's out there, this late in the rain, just getting soaking wet for what, for a laser light. And I thought to myself, either she's about to say she's joking, or she's confused. It's coming from somewhere very, logical, and I'll figure it out. So I brushed it off for a minute. I think I was watching a TV show, and she went from the kitchen, or wherever we were talking, and she had seen it. She saw it in the kitchen. She went from there to another room in the house, like the bathroom or whatever. And again, it was pouring down rain. So a few minutes later, I was thinking about what she said, and I thought, okay, I'm gonna go in there and look for myself. So I think my initial response was, I don't want to believe her. I want her to be joking. So I went into the kitchen and I'm standing over the sink and I'm looking out the back window, towards the pool and the deck. And, it's just a minute or two, okay, which felt like a long time. I was about to say, well, whatever it is gone, and be able to go tell her that. But it took about a minute or so, and then there it was. And it was coming from, this is the bizarre part, okay? It was coming from under the deck steps. And so, your thought is, oh my God, somebody is out in the rain, doing this. And of course, I bolted from the window to go tell her, yeah, I see it. Well, now that I'm an adult, I would have done one of two things as an adult now. I think I would have. I think I would have probably grabbed a flashlight and just turned on the floodlights and ran out there and tried to catch whoever it was, or I would have called the cops. But for whatever reason, we didn't do either one. So just a quick backstory before I tell you more on this, because there's more. The quick backstory is I grew up on kind of a private road, and all of the neighbors they're family. They're all family. It's my great-grandparents. It was my great-grandparents' farm. And so, all of their children inherited, bits and pieces, lots for their homes. And so, you don't want to think that it's one of your family members, but who knows? So one of my family members that lived down there, he always claimed that there was a prowler. That's what he called this mysterious person that no one ever saw. He claimed that there was a prowler. And, I never had any kind of evidence for this myself. And, I certainly didn't live in fear and things like that. But we knew that he strongly believed this. And he would occasionally share stories of things being, I think, stolen from his workshop on his property, or possibly things being moved, and he could tell that somebody had been in there and things like that. And there may have been more details. I could probably ask my parents to get more details, but I didn't put a lot of weight behind this because, again, it never really impacted me or my parents directly that I know of. So but yes, so this was, kind of unsettling. And so the other time that I can remember, and this is only twice, but for whatever reason, I'm thinking that it probably happened more than this. Not a whole lot, but possibly one or two other times. And so, but the other time I can remember, it came in through the front window and hit the fireplace. And so at this point, we were all in the living room watching TV. And my dad jumps up and grabs the blinds and pulls the blinds down and looks out the window. And he felt like he thought that he could see where it was coming from. He wanted to catch, because they were, doing it and stopping, doing it and stopping. And he wanted to be able to, just at the perfect moment, jump up and flip the blinds down and look and catch where exactly it was coming from. Because at that point, it would give him an idea of possibly, who it may have been. So he did that. And to my knowledge, after that, I don't think it happened anymore at my parents' house. Now, fast forward, this was all when I was a teenager, right? Okay, so fast forward to I'm married. And this was during a really difficult time in my life and in my marriage. And I had been staying with family for a little while because I had had a concussion. And I felt like they could help me with, watching my daughter and with childcare and things like that while I was healing. And so I had not been home. And so I went back home, and this is also a very sad time of my life, because I wound up getting divorced. And so, but this one night that I went home, the laser lights returned. And this was totally out of the blue, but I'll share it with you because it's still a mystery for me to this day. So I, at the time my daughter was very young, and so I was laying down with her in her room, to get her to sleep. So I was not asleep. And this is one of those things where you question what you've experienced, and you're like, okay, I know it's late at night. Did I possibly doze off and this was a dream and I thought it was reality, or what happened? But I was awake. So what happened was this was upstairs. There were French doors to this room, okay? And they didn't meet all the way. There was a little bit of where they come together, the split in the doors. There was a little bit of a gap. And there were also no windows right outside of those doors from any other rooms where I felt like this had any possibility of coming from outside. But I'm laying in bed, and we had her mattress on the floor because at the time she would roll, and we didn't want her to roll off onto the, fall off the bed. So I'm laying there and I'm looking up at the ceiling, and all of a sudden I see a red dot on the ceiling. And it was like directly above my feet. And when I saw it, it didn't scare me again for whatever reason. It's sort of, I think I had the response of being like a deer in the headlights, sort of like Frozen, okay? But I wouldn't describe it as fear. So I saw it, and I kind of I didn't move my body, but I moved my eyes, and I wanted to look down and see one of her toys and hopefully be like, oh, okay, it's coming from that toy, but there was nothing there. So I look over towards the French doors, and it's right there, coming from the bottom of where the French doors come together. And again, you would think that I would jump up, throw the doors open, see if someone was in our home, or, try to figure out where it's coming from, but I didn't. And to this day, I'm not sure why. Maybe there was fear there, and it didn't register as such for whatever reason, but I just remember laying there frozen. And after a very short time, it went away. And I don't remember after that if I jumped up and locked the door or whatever it was. I felt secure in the house as far as, we had a dog. I felt like if there was a break-in or something like that, our dog would let us know and things like that. So I don't suspect that it was anyone in the house. I don't know. I don't know. It's a mystery. And it's especially strange to me that I experienced that, and it was in alignment with what I had experienced growing up. So that's my story of the laser lights. Very mysterious and strange. I don't have a history of hallucinating and things like that, so I'll just put that out there. Yes. The other thing that I thought of, just mysteries, strange, I want to say spooky stories, especially since it's night and I'm recording this at night and I'm drinking coffee at night. I'm probably going to be up all night. But, So our dog Maggie passed away. She was a boxer mix, and we had gotten her at the animal shelter back in, I guess, 2012, I think. And so she passed away, not this past January, but the January before, January of 2025. And so she lived a very long, happy life and all this. And my daughter and I received a gift from a very sweet couple of a picture of Maggie in a frame. And this was a few months ago, okay? I don't remember exactly when, but, or maybe I don't think it's been, no, it hasn't been a whole year, but it's, I can't remember. We received, sometime after she passed away, we received this gift. And the frame has a holder, so it's meant to just kind of sit on a tabletop. And the holder to the frame is a very thin black metal, kind of decorative looking scroll-like thin wire, okay? So it's like a spiral type wire. And it's just, you know, very simple, and it holds this very lightweight, I'm trying to think, wooden frame, I guess. I'll drop a picture in if I can. I think I have a picture of this picture, and if I can find that on my phone, I'll drop it in and share it with you all. Okay, so here's the story about this picture. Excuse me, this is story number 2. The first place we put it was next to our TV, on our TV stand. I'm sorry, we have small tables on each side of our TV stand. So the first place we put it was over on one of those small tables next to the TV stand. And I noticed that every few days, sometimes it would be every day or every other day, it would start out, you know, parallel with the front. Let's say this is the front of that table, and the couch is over here, you know, and this is the front of this table. So the picture would be sitting on the table, and it would be parallel, okay? And then sometimes every day, sometimes every other day, it would turn, and I would put it back. And then I could never catch it turning, like slowly, like from airflow, because my mom had a great idea. She said, well, check and see if there's a vent, you know, because I have floor vents close by. And I checked, and, you know, after a while, because it did that for a month, so, and I could never catch it turning. And I checked, and there was a vent close by. So I moved it. I moved this picture frame to a totally different room, up high, away from all vents, and it's still doing the same thing. So, and the weird thing about this new location is it'll go a longer time before it turns now. It'll stay mostly parallel for sometimes a week before it turns. So I don't know. I don't know. Now it's turning in the same direction. You know, it's not like it switched directions. It's turning in that same direction. So I don't know if this is some kind of a design. I even Googled, you know, like, are there new picture frames that turn, you know, automatically, and, you know, maybe there's some kind of like for fun kind of a ghost picture, you know, moving picture holder or whatever. I can't find anything like this online. But, and it, you know, with it being a spiral on the wire, maybe that has a part in it, but still, I just find that really strange. And this is a picture of our dog that just passed away. So I just wanted to share that with you all. So if you've heard of something like that, let me know. Okay, and the last story I thought of, I have not thought of this in many years. But because I was trying to recall stories and I was thinking about our dog that we lost, I remembered a cat that I had, again, when I was a teenager. And she passed away when I was in my 20s and I was married. But she lived with my mom and dad, you know, still at home. And I don't remember how long it had been. This is my third and kind of my last story for this this video. I don't remember how long it had been when she had passed away. I don't think it was immediately after. It was sometime after, maybe like 5 or 6 weeks or longer. And, you know, of course it was on my mind, but I didn't dwell on it, you know, all the time or anything like that. And this is getting more into like superstition type stuff, but I'll share it with you all. So this one particular day, I was really, really thinking about her. But I didn't say anything to anybody. Nobody knew I was thinking about her. But she was just really on my mind. And her name was Sadie Cat. And I randomly get this text on my phone. And I don't know if this is still possible, but this was many years ago. The text didn't come from a phone number. It came from an email. And I tried to Google the email and see who it came from, and I couldn't find it, any kind of answers. But the text that came through when I was intensely thinking about my cat and had told nobody, excuse me, was, "Hey Hannah," my name, "it's Sadie. Or it's me," that's what it said. "Hey Hannah, it's me, Sadie." And, your first thought is somebody knows. I'm thinking logically, somebody must know I lost my cat and they're just goofing off and playing around or playing a prank or whatever. And that may still be true. That may still be the answer. That's the most logical answer. But what really got me is the timing. The fact that I was intensely thinking about her in that moment. And at that moment exactly is when this popped up, okay, this text. So a couple of things I want to discuss about this kind of thing right here, the last story. Number one, even if people intend something, let's say, for example, someone was playing a prank, okay, and they sent this text about my cat. They couldn't have known that I was intensely thinking about her at that exact moment. And to me, that's just sort of an indication that God is, the ultimate authority over everything. Meaning, his oversight in the timing of this and made it something special for me. Even if that person intended it to be, cruel, a cruel prank, for example. The timing of that, with what I was thinking and feeling intensely at that moment, is what made it not cruel. I didn't walk away from that with any kind of a bad feeling whatsoever. I walked away from that with wow. It felt like more than a coincidence, for sure. Excuse me. So, coffee time, hang on. And I want to share kind of an extension of this third story, other examples, okay? So we wound up moving. This is back when I was married. We wound up moving, to a nearby city, very close, different house. And at our new house with our new phone number, or did we carry our phone number over? I can't remember. Either way, that first story, about the text about my cat was on my cell phone. So at this new house, our house phone started getting a lot of junk calls. And, they were able to come through the phone line onto your caller ID looking like it was a phone call from a bank. It would say like Bank of America or, stuff like that. And, obviously this is just scammers hoping that you're going to look at that and pick it up. And, but they would leave voicemails, and it would be something where they're trying to sell, a service on your air conditioner or something like that, your furnace or your air or whatever. And I'm thinking, who's going to give them business when, they're deceptively entering your space via a phone call and presenting themselves as something that they're not, a bank or whatever? Who would give them business? But it was bizarre, but it was happening so much that ultimately we wound up using a service that AT&T offered, and I don't know if they still do this or not, but back then they offered this service where you could log on to your account online and you could choose a couple of different options, but one of those options was to block all calls. You would not even hear them or anything. They couldn't leave a message, nothing. It would block all calls except for the ones coming from the phone numbers that you enter, and you were allowed to input like 50 phone numbers or something. And we wound up having to do that. It was so ridiculous. I don't know what kind of list we got on, but it was crazy. But thank God, that they're trying to keep up with the technology that the scammers have or whatnot. Okay, so on that note, I had something very similar happen. Excuse me. One day, I was thinking very intensely again about one of the students that I taught that was very troubled. The student, it caused a lot of trouble in the school, and they were a very troubled person and had a very difficult past. And for whatever reason, this student was just, I randomly thought of this person and they were on my mind. And again, the timing came into play. And another one of those phone calls came through, and it kind of scared me, honestly, because it was his name. And at that time, he would have been grown, okay? So it really caught my attention, and it was quite scary because I didn't tell anybody that I was thinking about him. So, yeah. I'm curious if you have had these kind of experiences. So, I want to go a little deep for just a minute and share with you my concept of what we are. I think a lot of times we envision, when we're trying to understand reality and how it works and our place in it, and I think that most of us, if not all of us, contemplate things like this, because we know that this physical reality is going to end for us one day. And then what? And we hope that there's more. And, for a lot of us that have spiritual beliefs, we truly believe there's more in all this. Okay. I think that for a lot of us, we have this concept that, we are not our body, but that we inhabit our body, like on the inside. The body is like a vessel, okay? And the Bible talks about all this too. But based on a few things really based on everything influences us, right? I've come to a place in life, and I've felt this way for a long time. I feel like it's the opposite. I feel like we aren't inside of our body, but that our body is inside of us. Because this makes a whole lot more sense to me. And so, I'm not a person that claims to see, auras and things like that. I know some people claim that they can see a person's energy, like their energetic, signature or whatever you want to call it. And I don't have this kind of ability or anything like that. But in terms of spirituality and us having spirits, I personally don't think the spirit is inside the body. And maybe I'm wrong, But it's just conceptual stuff for you to think about and ponder. I'm certainly no authority, but on the matter or any matter. But I sort of have this concept of us being, this spiritual being first and foremost. And we temporarily have this body, but I don't any longer feel like that we are inside of it. I think the body is within our spirit. So if you think of it that way, and we don't know, if that's true, how far does it go? How are there limitations? Maybe there's not. But let's just say conceptually, mine ends out here. And then there's another person over here, and theirs is out here too. Well, sometimes you can be literally in the proximity of another person and feel uneasy, and you don't even know why. They haven't even spoken a word. They haven't given you any kind of hard looks or anything like this. You're just literally picking up on their energy. And, that sounds, I don't know, what do they call it? Like woo-woo and things like that. But, this is something that's always bothered me. People who claim to believe in a spiritual realm, like, and I'm not making a blanket statement about all Christians, but some people who claim to be Christians, as an example, the Bible discusses spirits, okay, and yet it's like, if it's not detailed out in specifics in the Bible, then they reject it. It's like and I'm not that way. I believe that the Holy Spirit will reveal things to us in God's perfect timing if He feels like He wants us to know. And so, yes. So, this is my belief, and I think that, have you ever had a light nearby you to flicker? And not just that, but have you ever noticed some kind of an alignment with maybe your emotions? Maybe you're really upset, you're really angry, you're feeling something very intensely, and then it's like the light flickers. I don't know. Can you really define our spirits in something as simple as a label or a term of energy and let that be it? I think, how can we possibly do that? But I think that there may be something similar there, energetically speaking, with regards to our spirits. And so I'll give one last story. This is kind of a bonus story for you all. And I hope this isn't, if you're like me and you hate scary stories and it's, your bedtime, I'm sorry. But this is something similar to what I'm talking about here. So this is a story that someone told me, and I don't really know if the details are correct, but I'll share it with you the way it was told to me, as far as I can remember. So my grandmother passed away in December of 2017, and I loved her very much. I was very close to her, but she was very unwell for a time before she passed. And so my family members were staying with her, overnight, stuff like that. And she had this small cabinet in the hallway, and it had doors on it, and it was kind of like glass doors, very small cabinet, and you put little trinkets inside, and she had these little miniature teacups and saucers and things like that inside of it. And it had been there for, I don't know how many decades, but many, many years, okay, many years. And so this is like the way I remember it being told to me anyway. It was sometime in the night. It was middle of the night, something like that. And my grandmother at the time, she would kind of come to, and then she would be medicated again, and she would be out of it, or she would be asleep, okay? So she would kind of go through these different waves of awareness. But anyway, she was frustrated. When she would come to, I know that she was, she was dealing with a lot, obviously, right? But she had some emotion going, okay? And that's what I'll say about that. But at this time, this cabinet, the door flew open. This is the way it was told to me. And it was either the teacup or the saucer fell out and broke, but it was described to me as, it was kind of like it was scary, to the person that was there. And I don't exactly remember which family member was there, but supposedly the door flew open and this kind of flew out, Okay, this small trinket flew out and broke. And the thing is, it had been there all those years. No problem. Why then? Why then? You know? And that seems to be, and maybe it's just, it's just time, you know? Maybe somebody bumped it and, you know, everything was pushing against the door. I don't know. But, you know, I enjoy pondering, you know, these bigger questions. And, you know, God gives us some amazing insight, just little breadcrumbs into, you know, the mysterious spiritual realm out there. And I just enjoy pondering the odd bits and pieces that we may experience here during our earthly walk. So I'm curious what you think about all this. If you have any stories you'd like to share, I'd love to hear them. You can drop them in the comments below. And I hope it wasn't too scary for you, especially if it's nighttime when you're watching this and you're going to bed. So turn on some cartoons. That's what I do. When I used to watch scary movies, which I don't anymore, I would always kind of like cleanse my brain with some lighthearted cartoons for a while. That was, you know, my solution. And it worked. It worked pretty well, except for some of those stories. Some of those movies were pretty bad. It's like the images can burn into your mind and you can just randomly recall them, you know, like 15 years later when you're in the shower or whatever. So that's why I don't watch them anymore. But yeah, true stories. I'd love to hear yours. I hope that you, especially even if you have a channel, something like that, it'd be great if you would share some of your stories too. I love true stories. So again, thanks so much for coming along to hear it and hear the stories. I hope you enjoy them. I hope that you have a beautiful day, and I'll see you again very soon.